Right. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started here. Thank you for joining the Inovateus Solar webinar series, Investing in Your Energy Future. Today, we are talking with Grand Rapids and South Bend mayors to show how solar fits with their municipality goals and how other cities can do the same. My name is Nathan Vogel. I'm a Senior Vice President here at Inovateus Solar, and I'll be helping in the beginning of this discussion and then at the end when we get to questions and answers. I'm going to go through the bios of each of the mayors that we have here. Mayor Rosalynn Bliss, the city of Grand Rapids. Thank you for joining us. Mayor Bliss was first selected as the mayor of the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan in 2016 and re-elected in 2019. Since then, she has been a green advocate of the city's business and residents, setting a goal to make Grand Rapids powered by 100% renewable energy by 2025. Mayor Bliss also is serving as the Frederick Meyer Endowment Chair in Entrepreneurship Innovation in Grand Valley's Honor College. She earned bachelor's degrees in psychology and criminal justice from the University of South Alabama and master's in social work from the Michigan State University. She is a past president of Michigan Municipal League and currently serves as the board of Downtown Development Authority, Experience Grand Rapids, Friends of Grand Rapids Parks, and many more. She has been honored locally as well as statewide for her work in the field of child abuse and neglect. As mayor, she is committed to supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs working to create a cleaner, healthier, and safer community for everyone. Thanks for joining us, Mayor Bliss. Next, we'll go with Mayor James Mueller from the city of South Bend. Mayor Mueller is the chief executive of the city of South Bend, the city's 33rd mayor, and he was sworn into office January 1st of 2020. As the mayor, Mueller is responsible for the city's workforce of over 1,000 employees and an annual budget of $380 million. Before being elected South Bend's mayor, Mueller served as the executive director of the community investment, where he focused on attracting businesses to South Bend, investing in our neighborhoods. Originally from South Bend and a graduate from St. Joe High School and the University of Notre Dame, Mueller returned to the city in 2015 to join the administration of Mayor Pete Buttigieg and to serve as his chief of staff. His tenure as chief of staff included establishments of the first diversity inclusive office in Indiana and the creation of the Departments of Innovation and Technology and Venues, Parks at Arts Department. Mueller holds a PhD in ocean science and engineering from the University of Delaware and worked as the policy advisor on energy, environment, and natural resources for Senator Maria Cantwell. He also worked as the director of research at the George Washington University Solar Institute, before returning here to South Bend. Next, introduce TJ Kanczuzewski. He's our CEO and co-founder here at Inovateus Solar, and he'll be guiding this discussion here. Thank you all for joining us today, and TJ, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. And you probably all noticed that Nathan didn't read my bio because it wouldn't have been as cool after Mayor Bliss and Mayor Mueller. So mayors, thanks for joining us this afternoon. We look forward to having a great discussion. Our webinar series at Inovateus is one that we hope can educate and inform the marketplace and what's happening at the city level in the United States, especially in the Midwest, is really, sculpting the future of our great country. So I want to start off with my first question here, and based mostly around some of the experience I had when I started in solar energy 14 years ago. Many cities were just starting to form their sustainability and clean energy goals and initiatives. So now in 2021, things have changed a lot, and it's been, personally for me, it's been great to see all the progress has been made. So could each of you just share some of the highlights of your current sustainability and/or clean energy goals as we stand here today in 2021? And Mayor Bliss, let's start with you.
Thank you. And thank you, Nathan and TJ. I'm really delighted to be joining you and joining Mayor Mueller. It's interesting to think about where we are today from where we started. So fortunately, my predecessor, Mayor Hartwell, who I was able to serve with as a city commissioner for 10 years, he really started Grand Rapids on this pathway of being committed to environmental sustainability. And so our very first goal related to renewable energy dates back to his tenure. So it goes back to 2005. He set a goal of getting to 20% renewable energy. And then he moved that to 100% renewable energy back in 2007. And the hope was to get to 100% renewable energy for municipal services by 2020. I became mayor in 2015. I was elected. And one of the first things I said is, where are we with our goals related to renewable energy? And what is our plan to get there? And what I found is that because of a whole host of reasons that we can talk about later, we didn't really have a specific plan that truly got us to that 100%. So we moved the goal back a little bit. So now our goal is 100% renewable energy by 2025. And then we created a number of other goals around that on how to get there. And so that's our renewable energy goal. But then we have a list of goals under our environmental sustainability plan. So we have a 40% tree canopy goal. We have a goal for stormwater diversion. We have a goal to add green space. We're currently working on a goal to reduce our carbon emissions. So we're hoping to solidify that goal soon after we nail down just a little bit more data, but likely we'll announce that we want to get to a 85% reduction by 2035 and 100% reduction of carbon emissions by 2040. So again, these are all tied together, but ultimately, one of the ways we're going to get there, both for our renewable energy goals as well as carbon reduction, is to integrate more renewable energies. And as you know, solar is key to that.
Great. Well, thanks, Mayor Bliss. Mayor Mueller, let's go to you next.
Great, thank you, TJ and Inovateus for hosting this webinar, and it's great to be here with all of you. Similarly, our city 2 mayors ago, so the one prior to Secretary Pete, Mayor Lickey, in the 2000s formed the Green Ribbon Commission that informed a lot of the work that's been going on over the past decade or so in the city of South Bend. And then we formalized a sustainability plan just months before I took office at the beginning of 2020. So a lot of work's been done, but the landscape has shifted over that time period between expecting more of a national response to moving to seeing how successful state responses have been, and then now even to the local and city level. And in many ways, this mirrors what we saw in some ways in the pandemic response, where it's a worldwide issue, but a lot of the pieces were being pushed to lower levels of government. So it's always better to have higher level coordination, and maybe we could see more progress if we had that. But we do know that cities have been asked to do more and more, especially over the last decade. And that's what led to the city forming the sustainability plan in 2019, because a lot of the conversations at the higher levels had stalled. So we have the goals, of what the coalition of mayors around the world have in terms of broad reductions of emissions, but we're still working out exactly our plan in terms of how much deployment of distributed solar in particular will be a part of that. And then, of course, as we're talking about electrifying our transportation sector, you're only reducing emissions if you clean up your electric sector first. So they're also very much related to getting more solar online. So just that's kind of our broad framework. We don't have specific targets yet. I'd say emerging, we would hope to get a megawatt of distributed solar done by the time our net metering will change starting middle of next year from the state level, going from reimbursed at the retail rate to the wholesale rate. So we want to get as much online as possible before that change occurs.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both. That's very insightful. With sustainability and clean energy initiatives, there's often, some commentary around that they're very lofty, ambitious goals, or ambitious efforts as well. So currently, what are some of the biggest challenges that each of you and your teams are facing as you're trying to accomplish these goals that your administrations have set forth? And Mayor Mueller, let's start with you first this time.
Well, that's a great question. It's maybe a little bit different than Mayor Bliss. It being in the state of Indiana, it does feel like state policy is constantly a headwind for us. Indiana did not adopt the policies like mandatory renewable energy portfolio standards or aggressive mandatory portfolio standards that can, or even carve outs for solar energy. And so we haven't been able to use those types of financing mechanisms that other states have been able to do so. But then, we talk about the net metering going from retail rate to the wholesale rate. And, the economics are finally starting to really drive deployment of these resources. And then now the rules are going to change on us and change, not that it's going backward, but because the costs are on a steady decline, but it does slow, as you change that policy, it does slow down our ability to deploy those resources.
Oh, great. Thanks. Mayor Bliss, what challenges you face in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, I would say similarly, and then I'll add on a few. So similarly, our regulatory environment here, net metering, and now the distributed generation programs that Michigan has, it makes it extremely difficult to make the numbers work and have any type of ROI to pay for these investments. So here in Grand Rapids, we don't have a municipal utility. There's a couple cities in the state of Michigan that have their municipal utility, and they've been able to move forward much more aggressively on their renewable energy goals than we are able to, because we're forced to work with Consumers Energy largely. We also work with DTE. So those are the two utilities in the state of Michigan, and it's challenging. We've been able to broker a great relationship with DTE at our wastewater treatment facility, where we're building a massive biodigester. We'll be creating renewable natural gas that will come online next month. And they've been a good partner, but it took a lot of work. And as you know, these projects are super complex. On the solar side, we did an analysis of all of our buildings. And for the vast majority of our buildings, we just could not make the numbers work based on the current regulatory environment. So we were successful on one of our sites that we analyzed. So we're in the process of adding a solar array at our Lake Michigan filtration plant. So that will increase our renewable energy usage, not just at that facility, but for our overall renewable goals by about 12%, which is great. But it took us literally 2.5 years to get there. The other thing is some of these projects are really complex. So for us, we have a large 400-acre landfill, capped landfill. It's been capped for over 25 years. We have been talking about putting solar on that space for about 15 years. And we still haven't been able to figure it out. So we're working closely with our utility, with Consumers Energy, to try to find a path forward for that site. But it's just incredibly difficult. So I would say regulatory, the complexity of some of these projects, and then as you know, financing. COVID, I think we were in a good place. And then obviously COVID hit our city, like many cities that are income tax-based cities. We are facing a significant deficit. And so we're just having to make difficult decisions and not put as much as we would have hoped into some of our environmental sustainability goals. And then with the cost increases of everything, even our biodigester, 3.5 years ago, the initial cost was $38 million, and now it's coming in closer to $80 million. So even cost escalation, supply chain issues are driving up some of the challenges related to this commitment to making investments around getting to our environmental sustainability goals. And then the last one too, we're in the process of switching over about 18,000 of our streetlights to LED lights. And again, that project went from 7 million to 10 million to 18 million. So I think when you take the regulatory environment, the complexity of some of these projects, and then the costs that it takes to invest, they're, what would I say? They're difficult problems to solve. They're not problems that you can't solve. It just takes a whole lot more work.
Great. Yeah, well, obviously a lot of challenges there, but sounds like some good solutions, and patience is obviously a major factor into seeing a lot of these ideas come to fruition. All right, so here's a fun question for both of you. So I know we asked you to do this webinar at 2:00 on a Friday. And of course, I'm sure you'd both like to sit in your office and work until midnight because you have so much to do. Well, let's just say you were able to get out and about on the town this evening. So it's 7:30 on a Friday night in Grand Rapids in South Bend. And I want to ask you, like, where would you go? What would you do? Mayor Bliss, let's start with you.
All right. Well, that's hard because we have so many great places. But one of my favorite spaces in the middle of the summer is a space right here in downtown called Studio Park. So it's an outside venue. They have music, live music. We've created a social zone and a social district for our entire downtown. So you can grab a drink and walk around and sit outside and listen to some music, and then take that drink and head to another place. So that's what I would do. I would start off at Studio Park, listen to some music, and then walk around and probably hit a few other of my favorite pubs.
Great. So if any of you have questions for Mayor Bliss, that's where you should be 5 hours from now. Mayor Mueller, how about you?
Well, you're making us choose favorites here, so that's a difficult question to ask any mayor.
I know.
But the county city building and where I live is in the downtown area. So if you were asking on a Friday evening, what's the most convenient, or it'd probably be somewhere, a place in downtown, vibrant social scene there, or just across the river from downtown at our newly renovated Howard Park. And so those would probably be the two most likely spots that you would find me. Fantastic.
All right, getting back into not so fun questions. Well, we have a number of folks who are calling in or will see the recording of this webinar. And some of them work for different cities or municipalities. So what's one piece of advice each of you would share with another, city employee or official who's working on sustainability goals in 2021? Mayor Mueller, let's start with you.
Well, if you're working within city government, I think most officials know that getting buy-in from the top can certainly help, and also getting the grassroots support to drive the buy-in. So it's both making sure the community is fully behind whatever the goal is, as well as making sure your mayor and your mayor's office team that helps sometimes break log jams when departments have different ideas. So for example, back when we were building new fire stations, the fire department wants to build their station for their purposes. And of course, they want to meet sustainability goals as well. But then when there are cost trade-offs, sometimes, what's the first thing that goes? Oftentimes, maybe not their core mission. It's the things they'd like to have, but not the things they absolutely need. And so, you need to have some level of buy-in from above to make sure that these decisions can be made at a broader level, and make sure that sustainability goals don't get lost in the mix of operational goals within departments.
Great. Mayor Bliss?
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things. One, at least in my experience, you need to invest in someone that has the expertise to lead the work internally. When I became mayor, the role of leading some of our environmental sustainability efforts were divided up between a number of staff, and investing in a leader for our sustainability office who has the expertise to get it done is absolutely critical. We have an incredible leader of our environmental sustainability team, Allison Sutter, and we've invested in that team, and there's additional staff in that office. And you really need somebody with that expertise who is able to lead the analysis and identify, what additional work we need to do. And then Allison has helped me. A couple of years ago, I put together an energy advisory committee made up of experts from our community, really diverse group. And going back to what Mayor Mueller said, it's important to have buy-in internally. I think internally our city has long been committed to environmental sustainability, but making sure that you're working in partnership with community and that the community can then support you when you're bringing forward that, $18 million request for LED lights. Having the backing of community really helps get that across the finish line as well. And so I would say expertise internally and then making sure you're working in partnership with community is key. And then if you are like Michigan, or it sounds like Indiana, you have to put a lot of time and energy into building relationships with your utilities in order to get them to help you partner in meeting those goals. It was just really apparent to me early on that unless I had consumers and DT at the table helping me figure it out, it wasn't going to happen.
Great. So, one thing I've gotten to watch happen, at least over the last 10 years, is that a lot of cities across the United States are starting to work together and share notes. And there's, I would say, a really strong coalition of cities that mayors that work together, both Democrat, Republican, Independent. So has there been anything in terms of sustainability or clean energy that you've been able to learn from other cities, or have other mayors, guided you in the right direction, or maybe have helped you with questions you've had? Mayor Bliss?
Yeah, I do talk to a number of mayors, and we're aligned on really advocating for certain policies. So in fact, I was just on a call about 6 weeks ago with the new Secretary of Energy talking about the importance of energy efficiency block grants and the value that brings to cities and helping us have the funds needed to do some of this work. I would say at the national level, we're mostly doing advocacy work. And then when it comes to learning from others and trying to figure out how to solve some of these more challenging issues, I do rely on mayors here in Michigan that are under some of the same limitations and parameters that I'm struggling with. And so I pick their brain quite a bit. I'm a part of a group of mayors here in Michigan called Urban Core Mayors, and it's the 13 mayors.
May have a little technical difficulty with Mayor Bliss. They need to fix the Wi-Fi in Grand Rapids. Mayor Mueller,
it's a plug for broadband investment
yeah.
as part of the American Jobs Plan.
Sure. Mayor Mueller, you want to take over for a second until she comes back?
Sure. First and foremost, I know the Sunshot Initiative at the Department of Energy has been focused on state and local policies and processes, trying to streamline those. So we were happy to partake in that program, the Soul Smart program, and getting the gold designation from them, learning about what are the best permitting and zoning and all of those processes at the local level to try to lower the costs of installation. But also part learning from the co-op model of how do you group homes together and lower the soft costs, the acquisition costs. And so those are two in particular. And then during my time in DC, watching what they were doing, one is they worked with their school system and deployed a lot of rooftop solar on school buildings. So that's something we're working to do here in South Bend as well.
Great. Mayor Bliss, you cut off right at the end there, but we're glad to have you back.
So sorry about that.
No worries. Awesome. Okay, well, one of the questions that I had for each of you is, so for companies like Inovateus that are focused on solar energy and renewables. And, we try to work with different companies and municipalities and utilities out there. Is there any advice that you would have for professionals like us as we try to deploy more solar storage and solutions that cities across the country need? Is there advice that you'd share to professionals or entrepreneurs or companies like us of things that would help make your jobs easier? Mayor Mueller, let's start with you.
All right. Well, it's not like we're inviting more input and feedback on the work of government, but I think it's important, especially for emerging companies and other groups, to reach out and make sure that their officials know what the barriers are and what's making it more difficult to deploy resources or get the financing done. Again, not looking to have more people asking for things, but really you don't want to be shy because everyone else is doing so. And if you're not, that means that you may get lost in the shuffle. So I guess don't be shy, don't be bashful, and just keep the pressure on both to your local officials as well as the public narrative, making sure we're getting good policies across the board from the local level to the state level.
Okay, great. Mayor Bliss?
Yeah, and that's what I would say too. I think, your expertise is really critical in helping us get to where we want to go. And, having ideas brought to us and communicating with local leaders. I know even I didn't even realize we had a number of real limitations in our zoning code for solar that I wasn't even aware of until it was brought to my attention by experts. So again, you're key partners in this work. And I think continuing to have those conversations is really key, and helping educate us. What is the latest and greatest research? What is cutting edge? What can we do to partner together is essential.
Great. Well, so COVID's been a challenge for a lot of us. Things seem to getting back to more of a normal. And we know that it's been tough for mayors to get together with other mayors. So glad to have the two of you here today. I would, be glad to open it up. Do either of you have any questions for each other? Yeah. Go, either of you take it.
Well, I would say I follow South Bend. We're in the process of restoring our rapids, and I know you've done a lot of investment in public spaces, including your river and parks. And so I can't wait to get down there and see how things are going and see what we can learn from you.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, there's a lot of good things. I have had the chance to visit up north and trying to figure out how we can bring some of the vitality that's in your city to South Bend.
Great. Nathan, I'm going to bring it back to you. I know we have some questions that folks sent us ahead of time, and I do believe we've received some more questions in real time. So Nathan, can you please share some of those questions?
Sure, and I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, please send them in through the Q&A and we'll get to them. But we do have a few questions here. The first one is to Mayor Mueller. South Bend has committed to being carbon neutral by 2050 with 45% reduction by 2030. The main question would be, what are the challenges or barriers to achieving that goal, and what can the community do to help with eliminate those barriers?
Well, that's a great question, and that's we've hit on it a little bit. Like we said, a lot is coming on the cities to act because we know that getting to these goals, they're ambitious. They are achievable, but they're ambitious, and we haven't been making to date. We haven't been making the progress that we need to reach those. The goals that climate scientists suggest we need to, and often we're seeing the reality of climate change right now. It's no longer a hypothetical. I think more and more people are understanding that as we have kookier and kookier once in a century, once in a millennia events. That's becoming clear. So the need for action is building, or the support for action is building. But then you get down to how do we actually get it done? And, you know, a lot of this is at the state policy level. So we need to find ways to get our state in Indiana. You know, there are states, I think if you look at where reductions have happened the fastest, it's generally the state legislatures have really taken a leadership role and enacted policies and gone after, you know, made their regulatory commissions do things, particularly in the electricity sector, that they won't do on their own, and they won't do if they're captured by utility interests. So that is probably the fundamental challenge for us, is how do we make sure that that we're able to take back our policies that get, you know, renewable energy is popular across the political spectrum. You know, if you asked people, do we want to have policies open to renewable energy? You know, vast majority of people would say that, but yet our policies don't reflect that fact. So, you know, we'll do as much as we can. You know, it's a little bit of an uphill battle here in being in a deeply red state, but you know, we'll keep pushing. The good news is the economics are on our side, and hopefully some more of the national policy will come on our side. And so you know, it's more delaying than blocking, but the sooner that we can break those barriers, the faster we can get to meeting our ambitious goals. So that's I mean, it's really educating and advocacy. I mean, we need to find effective ways to get the message out that these are good investments. I do think focusing on the community wealth building aspect of solar and distributed solar in particular can resonate. And then if you think of, you know, I'm not pointing fingers at which end of the political spectrum is more resistant to renewable energy at this point. You know, back in the 2000s, there were plenty of bipartisan substantial bills passed even at the national level, and then that seems to have slowed down. But you know, if you're thinking of a rise in a libertarian strain on one side of the political spectrum, distributed solar appeals to that. It's literally, you know, are there ways to get off the grid, especially when you combine it with storage? So if you have solar plus storage, and we're talking literally, you can detach yourself from the grid. That speaks to the libertarian strain in our political history. So, you know, obviously, then, you know, at a more micro level, you know, helping to move our projects forward. You know, as Mayor Bliss said, when we do come forward with programs and funding and different things, make sure that the community understands that this is a priority for our community. It's not just it's not just the mayor or someone else's idea of what to do, but there is value to doing this, and why, and that there's support, broad support in the community.
Great, thanks, Mayor Mueller. Mayor Bliss, I'll ask you the same question. Grand Rapids has a goal of 100% renewable by 2025. So what are the main challenges or barriers to achieving that goal, and what can the community do to help eliminate those barriers?
Yeah, so I am still very optimistic that we're going to get there. And as Consumers Energy, they have set new renewable energy goals, and we purchase renewables from them. I do think that there's greater alignment now than there ever has been in the past. With the addition of our solar array at our Lake Michigan filtration plant and our biodigester, our continued reduction in energy overall. And then my hope is that we'll have a solar array at our Butterworth landfill. I do think that we can meet that goal of 2025. The role of the community, I think, is really essential in helping us continue to advocate for the funds needed to get there, as well as Mayor Mueller said, how do we get the state to continue to be active and really push renewable energy goals, and then to put continued pressure on our utilities. We only have 10% choice here in the state of Michigan. So we have 2 utilities that need to be leading the charge when it comes to helping everyone meet those renewable energy goals.
Great, thank you. All right, let me go to a couple other questions here. This is from Tim, 2 related questions. Are you able to get the electorate to appreciate the long-term value of renewable energy for attracting jobs, businesses, and investments in your community? And part 2, have you considered public-private partnerships as a way to help subsidize the financing, for example, leasing programs for capital assets that are supported by the private sector?
Do you want me to start on this one?
Sure, that'd be great.
So fortunately in Grand Rapids, we have really strong partnerships with our private sector, and the private sector has been working really closely with the public sector for years. So we have a 2030 district in the city. Many of those buildings are owned privately, and they have worked aggressively to reduce their carbon footprint. We have a public-private partnership over on the west side of our city that we did just a couple of years ago called Circuit West. It was a development with Rockford Construction, Consumers Energy, in the city of Grand Rapids, where they are creating energy and storing it on site for that entire development. We also have really close ties with our development community. We have one of the largest number of LEED certified buildings, both public buildings and private buildings. And we continue to have green initiatives when it comes to green building initiatives. So I think the private sector is absolutely key, especially as we talk about community-wide carbon neutral goals. We can make a plan for our municipal government, but we really need to work in partnership with community as we create those larger community goals. So I would say that partnership and their investment in the private sector is also key. And I believe, at least here in Grand Rapids, there's overwhelming support for our environmental sustainability goals. There's a lot of pride in our city for some of the work that we've already done, whether it's providing free recycling to all of our residents. We just opened a large composting site where we're taking waste from our residents, creating compost, and then a portion of that is made available to our residents. And we consistently get support from our community for some of those efforts.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and it reminds me of when working on energy policy in the Senate for Senator Cantwell. Is we weren't always the top of mind in terms of energy policy, and things weren't always the top of mind for elected official, and that's because we weren't the top of mind for residents. And how do you break through? And the energy system is complicated. And how do you distill a very simple message of what's at stake and getting that buy-in from our residents? But when you simplify it, I mean, in many ways, especially with distributed solar, not talking utility scale solar, but distributed solar, you have the ability that's especially appealing for a rebounding Rust Belt city like South Bend, is you have the ability to generate value on top of your house or business, and retain wealth and build wealth over time. Instead of sending money to the electric company and their investors, wherever they may live, you're keeping this wealth in the community that can then go to other things, whether it's just pure consumer spending or other investments made within the community. So I think that can be a clear message to get buy-in. But of course, the downside here too, the city of South Bend does not have traditional mining. We don't have a lot of mining jobs here. So the kind of conflict between new renewable energy jobs versus old energy jobs. We don't have oil, gas, coal. So there's not that trade-off. The solar installation, other renewable jobs, those are all new jobs for us, and we're not losing jobs because of it. So that makes it easier. And then, of course, when you're talking about the economy, when you bring in private sector partners, that always helps sell that there, it's not just, again, not some idea of a government official. This has got private sector buy-in because there's value, and then when you do so, of course, you can do more when you bring in more partners. So those are all successful strategies, but first and foremost is, how do you make energy policy and our climate goals more toward the top of mind of more voters? And that's a ongoing challenge.
Great, thank you both. All right, I'll go to another question here. Did either Grand Rapids or South Bend have agreements with utility providers or electrical utility aggregators that inhibited or prohibited your city from implementing on-site renewable energy solutions on municipal-owned property? Mayor Bliss, you want to take that first?
Yeah, so our challenge is, so we have a challenge because we have to work with consumers. So we do have a contract with Consumers Energy, and so we've looked at 12 different locations to put solar, and looked at, can we do it behind the meter? Can we, add it to our primary circuit? And it's been very challenging because of the ability to make the numbers work, quite frankly. And some of the space issues, and then some of the challenges with infrastructure. And when you add that cost up, the numbers don't work. I mean, there's not an ROI for 30 some years. And so, yeah, we do have an agreement, and trying to work within the parameters of that agreement, I'd say, has been challenging at times.
Yeah, and we have, similarly, we have an agreement. There are restrictions, a number of different ones, but that's something that the team is working hard. And then, of course, when our utility company proposes rate increases like they're doing currently, we seek to intervene with our legal team, not just for the rates, but also to try to push some of our policy goals. So those are ongoing challenges that, until it's hard to, other than those few levers that we have, such as rate intervention and other pieces, until the State House really dictates policy or directs the Regulatory Commission to make changes, the utilities in a very strong position. It's by design a monopoly. So that's why we have the Regulatory Commission, to make sure that the people's will, and they're not getting taken advantage of on rates, but that should also extend to broad policy goals like climate.
And can I just add one other thing? For large cities like ours, I think the other challenge is just the size and the how our city services and facilities are laid out. So we have 300 utility accounts, 200 facilities, and again, trying to figure out solutions for each of those can be really challenging. And so again, there's just complexity versus all of us being in one large building, one large site that potentially you could generate solar on that one site. That's what we've been able to do out at the Lake Michigan filtration plant. We're able to generate on site and use it on site for that facility. But it's challenging, again, just because of the size and the scope of our organization.
And just one little add-on question here that I have. Do either of you see anything changing in the next 10, 20, 30 years to where that whole structure by which many cities like yourself have agreements with utilities, where you'll be able to, produce your own electricity, or maybe have, solar power plants or storage plants? Do you see a change in the distant future?
I don't see any changes, at least while I'm mayor. So
Okay.
I can say that. Maybe whoever comes after me will see some change. But as of right now, we're really committed to working with our utilities to find solutions. And with current leadership, at our utilities. I do believe that there is a commitment on their end too to move towards renewable energy. And so we're partnering with them on that and strongly encouraging them to come alongside us to help us meet our goals. And so far, especially in the last, I'd say, year, they've been key partners in helping us move forward some of our goals.
Great. Mayor Mueller?
Well, you got to stay optimistic that we can achieve that change. And I mean, we're going to get more renewables on the grid. And, you know, if the Biden administration's policy, they're going to make substantial investments into our grid that will enable more renewables and enable a smarter and hopefully more distributed power generation model. But, you know, at the regulatory level, I mean, I still, you know, I think that there will be a time when the libertarian group does take hold and understands the value of solar. They're going to want it too. And once you start building that kind of coalition across the political spectrum, then you can have real change. And you can look at a number of different policy areas, but we're living in a very populist age where that type of toppling of old systems, we've seen a lot of these. And I think we hope that we will see a reimagining and a new type of grid system that will have to have regulatory changes. If not, I mean, you know, that it just won't work if we don't also make changes to our regulatory system.
Great. Nathan, I think we probably have time for 2 more questions here. So why don't you pick 2 more?
Okay. All right. Do you currently have sustainability goals and metrics for your material suppliers and contractors? And do you see a time when your city will only deal with partners who are good stewards of the planet?
You want me to go first, Mayor?
Sure. Yeah.
So we don't have requirements, but we have bid discounts. So we have built in a number of goals related to environmental sustainability. And if the companies that bid on some of our projects, if they meet those, they get a bid discount that obviously gives them a leg up on that contract. So there's some limitations on what we can mandate. Our state legislature has passed a number of preemption bills that limit some of the things that we can do locally and some of the things that we can mandate related to both environmental sustainability and a whole host of other issues. Like many states across the country, local units have been preempted in a whole host of ways. But we do work really closely on those incentives. And then we've built in a lot of requirements into our master plan. We have a Green Grand Rapids plan that is a part of our master plan, and then also within our zoning code for building.
Well, yeah, I mean, Michigan and Indiana sound closer all the time where, yeah, there are plenty of preemption from the state level, and procurement is an area where state mandates, it regulates pretty closely and dictates what we can do. But that on projects, we can put bid specifications in that have, you know, excuse me, meet certain of those standards or goals. So, you know, it's more on a project by project basis rather than a policy similar to what we do for MWBE contracting, for example.
Great. Well, this will be the last question here. As a tax exempt entity, how does the city make solar projects pencil when much of the financial incentive is tax-based?
So what we've been able to do is that we've been able to show how much we will save in electricity costs. So we're able to show if we make this investment. So I'll give you an example for our LED streetlight project. We were able to show that we'll reduce our energy usage and the amount of money that we pay the utility and energy bills by almost $400,000 a year. So you really have to look at that ROI. Same thing with our solar array at Lake Michigan filtration plant. We were able to show that the energy that we're generating on site that will be used on site behind the meter, it'll lower our energy bills over the course of the next 12 years. So that piece of it, that ROI piece of it, is really crucial. Same thing with our biodigester project, which ended up being about $80 million. We were able to show that if we were going to expand our wastewater treatment facility to manage the sludge in the way that we've been doing it for decades, it would cost about $110 million. But if we use that sludge, create a biodigester, anaerobic digester, I should say, and then work to create renewable natural gas that we can sell back to DTE, it actually creates a revenue stream long-term, but also has an ROI. So that's a big part of the analysis to get the numbers to work, but also to figure out, for us, we bonded for a number of these projects. And so having all of that work done ahead of time to pencil it out really helps make the case.
Yeah, it's a great question of how do nonprofits or government entities take advantage, and just like other projects that people may do in other areas, including the solar projects, is you usually find a partner that can take advantage of the tax credits, and they monetize those, and then they pass those on to the broader project. But not to beat a dead horse here, but there are things that some states can do that we're not able to. But fortunately, there are creative lawyers and financiers that have figured out how to monetize the tax credits for solar projects, even here in Indiana. So the main model is the energy savings contract that we've done on some of our municipal buildings, and that's at least I haven't seen any preemption legislation. TJ, I don't know if you're aware of any preemption legislation circling in the State House, but hopefully they continue. They don't figure that out, or they're okay with it, and they don't take that tool away from us as well.
Yeah. Now, there are some interesting policies that could get passed in the next several years with the investment tax credit that's currently set at 26%. There could be a direct pay on that investment tax credit, so that could really help investors who invest in municipal type projects for the municipalities to kind of benefit from those, whether it be a solar project, storage, or some type of renewable. So we could see things down the pike, but nothing that either of you don't know about at the moment. Well, good. Well, Mayor Bliss, Mayor Mueller, we can't thank you enough for your time today. Your insights were very informative, I think very helpful to a lot of folks that were able to call in and folks that will get to see this recording. So thank you very much. We know you're both very busy, and we hope that neither of you have to work until midnight, and that each of you get to go out and enjoy what both of your great cities have to offer on a Friday night. So thank you very much from the Inovateus team, and we hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much and appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, TJ.
Thanks. Bye.